Jennifer and Ryan are here to present to us on how things are going over at RRPD, and I see we have a builder's bulletin before us, so I'm just going to turn it over to you folks to do your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Nope, good morning still.
Still.
Good morning. Thank you, Council and Administration, for allowing us to present today. I think everyone knows us. I'm an Executive Director, and we have Ryan Nickel, our Manager of Development Services. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of the service improvements that we've brought forward over the last couple of months. So just in terms of an agenda, we want to talk about some of the metrics from 2023, some of the challenges that we saw, the service improvements that we're bringing forward or have been brought forward, what's next, and then just a brief reminder about our complaint strategy, and then some time for questions. So in terms of metrics, we've had a busy couple of years. In 2022, we saw record numbers for single-family dwellings. 541 were issued in 2023. This was followed by a record number of inspections last year. Over 11,000 inspections were completed, which was a 40% increase compared to 2022, and that was largely in relation to the large number of single-family dwelling permits that we saw issued in 2022. Leading to more challenges, we saw the adoption of the 2020 building code in January of this year. This did require a change in our standard operating.
Can I just stop you for a minute, Jen? I think the one lady...
She's having a hard time, they're giving her a hard time, she can't get to her vehicle. Maybe she could come up the back here and somebody could escort her.
So what's wrong?
She can't get her feet. I told her just to wait.
Well, I get, but if her car's on the side...
Yeah.
I'll go back.
Where's your car?
Probably here.
On the side?
Probably.
There's nobody back here. When her tires downstairs.
Wait till you're in the line of fire.
Well, Derek is going down the stairs, so maybe...
Is your car?
I see Derek went down the stairs.
Tyler and Caroline are out there as well.
Okay. Okay, yeah, continue. Yeah, we'll catch Councillor Borges up, so go ahead.
So in addition to the service standard challenges that we saw with the increase in demand of both permit review and inspections, there was also a change to the building code, jumping from the 2010 building code to 2020 in January of this year. So that required a review of our standard operating policies and making sure that communications went out in association with that. And there was also the performance standard regulation that came into effect March of this year. So what that does is impose legislative timelines for review. So there's an initial review period where we need to notify applicants of the completeness of their application within 5 business days. That gets cut down to 2 business days next March. And there's also a timeline to approve applications. So it's 25 business days for Part 9 or residential permits. That gets cut down to 15 business days in March of next year. And then for commercial, it's 30 business days. There's also a requirement for inspections to be completed. Right now, it's within 6 business days for residential, going down to 2 business days, and 4 business days for commercial, again, going down to 2 business days. So far, we've been lucky that we've been able to deliver on the 24-hour turnaround time. We'll see if that continues over the course of this season. But just some of the context and challenges in what we've been working with. So did that lead to some concerns? Absolutely. With those record volumes in permit reviews and inspections, there were definitely some concerns. And we did track those concerns and complaints. Those were provided to the board on a monthly basis. But we also met with builders February 8th to talk about some of these issues and concerns. And what we heard was there was a lack of communication between our office and the builders. Inspectors were not spending enough time. We were commenting on non-code related items, and that was something that we did do in the past. We would make remarks, let's say if it was a quality control issue, we would raise that. We were providing inspection comments on issues that were in relation to lot grading. Again, it is a code requirement, but we were finding specifically in West St. Paul, there was some redundancy there. Complaints that we were not accepting photographic evidence and that plan reviews were taking too long. So what did we do? Quite a bit. This is just in relation to the inspection side of things. So to improve communication, we did make the cell phone numbers of our inspectors available. That was provided directly to the Manitoba Home Builders Association. But phone numbers are also available on our website. That was intended to improve communication and relationship building. The landlines for inspectors were always available, but because they are so often out in the field, the builders wanted to make sure that they could access our inspection team. We do provide call-aheads if we're running outside of an approved inspection window. What we heard from the builders was that the City of Winnipeg calls ahead for every inspection. We did confirm with the City of Winnipeg that that's not their practice. They do have AM and PM slots, and they do call ahead if they're running outside of those windows. Inspectors will complete their inspection commenting only on building code and approved compliance, so we're not going to be providing those remarks going forward. We are trying to allow inspectors to have more time in the field to, again, build those relationships. Final inspections were revised in West St. Paul to ensure that we weren't commenting on items that were already approved by Stantec and through the RM's lot grading process. We formalized our photographic evidence procedures. So for minor defects, we will accept photographic evidence, and there is a process that goes along with that. We were informally accepting it before based on the discretion of the development officer. In West St. Paul, we are accepting non-permanent addressing. So that was a complaint coming out of the building and development community that the final inspection wasn't being passed if there were vinyl decals in the window or paper in the window. So that was something that came forward. Construction key access for buildings. We were finding that we were arriving on site, couldn't access the building, resulted in multiple trips. So we are accepting construction keys for building access, and that is helping alleviate some of that frustration. We no longer request spray foam certification. Code references are available upon request for deficiencies. And we did streamline our inspections to reduce the number of hotbox inspections, to provide separate descriptions for inspections in relation to duplexes, improving that communication piece, and adjusting our inspection descriptions, again, providing better communication. And also looking at completing some of the inspections at the final inspection stage rather than earlier on in the building process. In terms of plan review, we created a series of standard operating procedures to accept engineered plans. This is both for regular permits and our certified professional submission. Our certified professional submission is generally processed quicker because the engineer assumes the responsibility for all the structural details in association with the plan. So as part of that, for minor non-structural issues, we will issue the permit with conditions added to it rather than requesting that information. So that further expedites the plan review process. And if we run across a series of CPS applications where there are major structural items missing, we will put that through the regular process. And we've also reduced our related markups as part of the plan review process. That was intended to assist inspectors in the field, but we're finding that it was taking a little too much time, so that has been reduced. In terms of communication, Ryan and I have had ongoing discussion with the building and development community, trying to move forward on a clear path. And we've also had several communications. As you can see, there's a builder's bulletin that has been provided to you, but also bulletins with respect to the inspection booking process. We created a communication procedure with respect to cloud permit. We did receive some complaints that applicants were receiving the correspondence through cloud permit. So there is a separate email that is being sent to applicants when additional information is required in association with their permit, just to ensure that that information is getting out there. And then finally, we created an exception reporting procedure to communicate to the board when permits are taking or outside that legislated timeline. And just some general items. There is a secure lockbox for after-hours payment. In February of this year, the board imposed a 2.4% transaction fee for all credit card payments. That resulted in a lot more check payments coming forward, so we wanted to make sure there were after-hours payment methods to receive that. And we also created a report and process in relation to non-conforming structures, just to ensure that issues are being addressed and that there aren't any delays in property owners who have associated permits. So overall, there are 26 improvements implemented. That was last month now. And we have a continued commitment for further improvements. This information has been presented to the Manitoba Home Builders Manitoba Home Builders Association. We continue to have one-on-one meetings with the building and development community, as do our inspectors, trying to take more time out in the field, trying to build that relationship. And we're also looking at other efficiencies that can be achieved. Cloud Permit has introduced some new features that will help us provide those code efficiencies, as well as digital plan software. Right now we're using a program that is basically a PDF viewer that is not the most user-friendly, so there's some potential for some software improvements. And then finally, we were awarded the Municipal Services Delivery Improvement Program grant, which we're very happy about. So we're currently working with BDO to bring forward recommendations on financial sustainability as well as a solid operational baseline. Their first priority is to undertake a risk assessment and prioritize improvements, examine the permitting cycle, review budget and strategic planning, engage our stakeholders, as well as exploring best practices for recommendations and tailoring those to the RRPD. And just lastly, I just want to remind you that we do have a formalized complaint policy. If you do receive any issues or concerns from your ratepayers, please encourage them to reach out to me. I'm happy to look into the issues and concerns. We do report to the board on a monthly basis on those issues and concerns. So just a reminder, I want to make sure everybody's aware of that, and every time I meet with council, I try and provide that. So very large amount of information in a very short period of time, but we're happy to answer any questions if there are.
Okay, thanks for that, Jennifer. Ryan is sitting there very quietly. Maybe someone will ask him some questions, but I'm going to open it up now for council questions to Jennifer and Ryan. Go ahead, Councillor Spicer.
Somebody's gonna start it. You mentioned lot grades in West St. Paul. Don't we have a similar process here that West St. Paul would be using? Like we do lot grades for.
Correct.
Yeah. So we have an engineer that does that, or?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, okay, so I think it's transferable. Go ahead.
And that's something that we can talk to your administration about. It was something that came out of West St. Paul, but something that I think can be transferable depending on exactly what's being looked at, but we can have a chat with administration. It was basically in relation to sloping away from the building. I think it was downspouts as well, location of downspouts.
Yeah, and I think the bigger challenge in West St. Paul is they have 4-foot side yards for their properties. So the grading is, a lot more important there, and you have to watch a lot closer. Or here in St. Clements, there's a lot. I don't know if there's any 4-foot side yards in any of the zones here.
Probably not.
So, there's probably less concern, but definitely if there's redundancy between departments, we can definitely look at that. West St. Paul has Stantec hired as a consultant that checks their grading, sets their grading, checks their grading, and goes through it all, and then sends a report back to the RM office. Their public works department then has their checklist that they go over, and then that's how they release the lot grade. So they have,
Yeah, we've been doing the same, right?
yeah,
For years, I think.
yeah, so there could be
With our
some
lot grade
similarities.
permit, right?
Yeah, so we can definitely discuss that further and see if that's something we can implement here as well, so. It's always nice to get it going somewhere, and then when it works, and it works well, then you just implement it with the other ones and keep running with it, so.
Yeah, we've been
definitely.
doing it for a number of years though already, the lot grade permits.
Yeah, so is West St. Paul. It's just, before the code requires that the land be sloped away from the building,
Right,
and we have to make sure that. They were checking that as well, which, from what we understood in the past, that they were just checking heights that the dirt had to be to, not necessarily the slope is there.
so,
The
okay,
downspouts are on, they have to make sure there's splash pads at the bottom of the spouts, they're making sure the window wells are in, and there's drainage in them, and they're making sure the sump pump discharge is not directed at the neighboring property, that's in a safe place that would be drained away. So their list is pretty thorough, which we weren't aware of, never came up before this point, so,
okay.
yeah. So now we know that, we can make changes and adapt, and same thing here, we can go through with your public works department and discuss that for sure.
Yeah. Anything else? Go ahead, Councillor Boulanger.
Number 6, it's formalized photographic evidence procedure. Small projects like little garages, is an inspector still going out to view rebar? Or can a photo be brought in or sent in of the rebar configuration? Do you need for an inspector to go out to all these little garages and look at rebar? Just wondering.
Yeah, under 592 square feet, we don't.
Okay.
Anything over, we do. We did try a few years ago to, we worked with one contractor that was doing a bunch of slabs, concrete for garages. We worked with them to try to do photographic on those, so we could have like a controlled situation. And it didn't work that well for rebar because there's overlap, size of bar, it's hard to see some of those things, quality of pictures and that. So basically, we just adjusted that under 592 square feet. We're just doing one inspection on the structure, making sure that it's there. It's the right size and shape is what you told us. We're not going to dig into it too far. If we show up and we see that it's made out of pallets, we're going to ask some more questions, but we're not going to really dig into it. Over 592, you're getting quite large, and so that's where we feel that we do the rebar inspection. That's something we've been doing for 20 years on those sizes, and it's been pretty consistent with other jurisdictions around this as well.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Scott. Oh, sorry, Sandra.
That's okay.
You can,
Scott must have a list. Go ahead.
I have 2 comments. I guess sitting around the council table here, the one thing you always see is variances. We need our zoning change, so that's the one thing that really hits home around here, that we're always having these variances coming forward on our planning night. The other thing is, do you ever have your meetings with the camera on or whatever, something that could be more transparent? Because there's some times that our residents will ask us, and you do put your minutes on, but just to have something that we still have all our meetings with the camera.
Recorded.
Yeah.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, we haven't recorded our meetings, but that's something that I can bring back to the board.
I remember when I was on the board that we did, I asked at Selkirk, and there wasn't a facility there, but I know that now that you've moved in at the other, at East St. Paul, I'm
Yes.
sure they have.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking they did it there,
Right.
and I know even on our meetings, I go back some of the time just to check of what was said, what was discussed, and to me, I think it would be beneficial for some residents too,
Mhm.
and some of us councils, that we get an update, but not some of the time of some of the details or the discussion that actually went on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Scott, and then Glenn.
and then Scott again.
And then me.
I guess Sandra touched on it. And I know we can't get into specifics here, but there are some workforce challenges that are being dealt with at RRPD, so you know, I guess if, the easiest way is are there some options that are being looked at? so that the zoning bylaw gets done, for example, or if larger applications come in, that we can accommodate as RRPD.
Yes, so coming over to the board tomorrow is another memo talking about the planning shortage and sort of our last ability to move forward on the zoning bylaw. So there were some restrictions from a budgetary standpoint that didn't allow us to hire a full-time planner at present. There were some market restrictions with respect to availability of summer students. We had 5 interviews and were only able to secure 1 summer student. We had offers out to 3, and one was scooped up within hours of an interview, actually. So that just is indicative of how tight the market is from a professional planning standpoint. But there is a memo going forward to the board outlining options to move forward on the zoning bylaw.
I've got one, I guess, oh, Glenn, go ahead, I can wait, thank you.
Just a follow-up comment on what Councilor Strang mentioned and Councilor Spicer. Variances are, well, the zoning, variances are expensive and time-consuming, and they're seldom denied. You know, just, it seems like a process that could almost be eliminated.
Okay, my question isn't so much on the building side of it, but I know that, you know, is there anything in the Planning Act or that you guys, or you follow, where if an application is made for a subdivision, is there a time frame from when the application is made at your office till it comes to council for their decision?
Yes, there is. There is a time frame under the Planning Act.
Okay, and what is that
I
time
believe
frame?
it's 60 to 90 days. I have to double check, but there is a timeline that it needs to go to public hearing.
Right,
And then a timeline that a decision is made, so that's at
Right.
the approving authority at the board level stage.
okay.
So I can follow up with those timelines, I don't recall them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I had that question asked of me, like we made an application and it hasn't come to council yet.
Mhm.
But I don't remember who it was, of course, so.
Right, but there are legislative timelines for
Okay.
that, yes.
Okay, and what about nothing for variations or conditional uses?
No.
So if I made an application today
Mhm.
and you were waiting for some information, it may not necessarily be heard if that information isn't provided for a number of months?
That would be fair. I think what we would do in that instance is have a mutual agreement between the property owner and our office saying, we're waiting for this information, so we could either send your application back, or we can place it on hold, understanding that this information is outstanding.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else? Go ahead. Oh, Scott, I forgot about you. Go ahead.
Thinking of the correct words. So, how do we know that these changes are working?
Mhm. That's a great question. I think we would have to reach out to the building and development community after a busy season in the fall. Maybe it's a follow-up meeting, maybe it's a quick questionnaire or survey. What are your thoughts? How did this work? What do we need to continue working on? But there should be some metrics after I would say at least 6 months to give it some time to take hold.
One more.
Go ahead.
So we're talking about the delivery improvement program.
Mhm.
So would this also be a part of that?
So I did provide BDO with a copy of the improvements that we have implemented to date, saying this is what we've done already, this is what we're thinking about and what we're looking at, but they're going to, as I understand, come forward with their own set of recommendations.
Okay, when they are meeting with stakeholders, would that include the development community?
Not at this point in time.
Okay.
Stakeholders are going to consist of the board, administration of our member municipalities, but I don't believe that they're meeting with the building and development community at this point.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about feedback and, because that's the only way that this is good, right?
Absolutely.
But we need to make sure we get that feedback.
For sure. I can say anecdotally, builders have been very happy with this. They said, this is great, thank you, but of course, we have to have it implemented for some time to see.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Go ahead, Counselor Strang.
I'm just gonna make a comment that I hear builders a lot. We, our administration may hear about, from our builders, us as council members, we're hearing from our residents. So to me, it's not always just about the builders or the building, like, you know, it's our residents that are making it easy. And just that customer service of them coming in and guiding them through, because some of them don't even have computers that you'll find out, or internet, whatever, that they still need the steps of. And things have changed since years ago, especially if you get some elderly residents or people, again, just not on, no internet, so.
Absolutely. From a service perspective, we do have several staff that can assist at the front to walk them through the application process. We're short-staffed, so we've been building a lot of redundancy internally to try and make sure we do have those folks available to help walk people through the application.
And I know our municipality, we do have the concierge service here too, which is, I think, very rare through the RMs. I don't know if any other municipality does that, but that helps a lot. But yeah, just that when they're going down to Red River Planning, because that's what we'll say as a councillor, that's dealt with through Red River Planning. So of course they're coming down probably to your office first.
And yes, we do have people at the front, we have dedicated staff that work with cloud permit that know the inside and out, so if someone's having challenges there, they can make phone calls, go on team meetings, whatever is needed, share screens so they can help walk them through. We also have another staff that's mostly dedicated to answering calls, questions, inquiries, things like that, and they're there, that one person for the most part, just so we get consistency on that. Yeah, we're definitely working with them. We're trying to help people, we're talking a lot more, we're spending more time with people, as Jennifer mentioned. We do have to be aware that we are legislating, but the province now wants a complete application. So in the past, when we used to be able to say, okay, you'll get a stat and that's fine, we'll take this in today, now we have to say no, because we can't legally accept it if it doesn't have everything that's required. So there's times we're saying no, but we're still working with them, explaining to them why, working with them to try to, so they can get that information. I had someone at the front counter the other day, and their site plan was missing a lot of information. So I said, here you go, and gave them a ruler and a pen, and they sat there and they did it while they were waiting, and then they can make applications. So it wasn't a matter of, I had to say no that I couldn't accept it, but it wasn't turning them away from the building and they could leave. It was saying, here, you can just add those numbers, work with them to get them so they can put it all on there, so that they can make an application. That's a very simple, minor thing, but it's the same thing.
And if they don't have access to cloud permit, they can still do
Yep.
it at the county.
You can make application in office, you can mail it in, you can do it through cloud permit. We still have, very seldom, but we have people that don't have email addresses, typically maybe don't use the internet either, so they can make application, and we mark those down as phone call only, so we communicate everything through phone call. Everything's still loaded into cloud permit, we still track it through there on our end, so all the information matrix on timelines and communication is all in there, so our phone conversations then are written into cloud permit, we take it all out to say what was discussed, so it's all documented in there.
I think that's just good information for all of us and residents also.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that kind of raises, I guess it is a question, and I know at one time, people were saying that, like, if you got an application and it wasn't complete, and you sent a note back to them through cloud permit, they weren't getting that. Has that straightened itself out?
So what we've done is create a communication protocol. So it still goes through cloud permit, but we send a separate email as well, because I did hear that as an issue and a complaint. I think it might have been filtered as spam in somebody's email, or it's just a generic email saying check your account.
Right.
So we've helped to address that by providing that separate direct email.
Okay, perfect. Anything else? Deepak? I knew you have something you wanted to share.
I have a few comments that have been made to me by councillors, and so they wanted me to ask those questions on behalf of them. So, the first one is, and I think Councillor Spicer's already brought this up, is these improvements. They all look great, so how do you know that they're going to be done or completed, and then that there's some true benefit from it. And I think that comes down to, as you mentioned, you're going to be looking at it in 6 months. And I think what council's looking for is there is some sort of a communication back to this council and others so that we can help to communicate this. Because I think the biggest issue is this level of communication that we need to do to our residents, our builders, our council members, our stakeholders that are also wanting to know that this is happening because, you know, the comment is negative comments travel at the speed of light and positive comments barely get out of the ground.
Absolutely.
So we need to find a way to make sure that we're communicating that. So that was one of the first ones that they brought up. The other is, council has brought up, one of the things that they've identified as part of our strategic plan is much more, and you've probably seen some of my emails that are beginning to go towards that direction. They've been pushing the administration to have much more communications just generally about all services and so forth. So now that your information is available on your cloud permit, that you say that it's all in there, is there a way of finding out sort of a, you know, outstanding so that we can be a little bit ahead of the game? You know, some type of a reporting mechanism, you know, not necessarily each individual property, but you know, some mechanism. I'm not telling you what to do exactly right now, but I'm just saying that some mechanism of reporting. There's so many that are in the queue.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if the communication that's being done at the board translates to coming here to eventually ending up on our website as a sort of return.
Is this in relation to permits?
I think both.
Okay, so we will have exception reporting that will be going to the board on a monthly basis. This month, I'm happy to say there's nothing outside the exception, so there's no report, which is very good news. In terms of planning, so that is not an automated system, that is not through Cloud Permit, that is a very basic system through Excel that we're monitoring and keeping track of. We can look at how that can be reported to our member municipalities. 50% of our planning staff have been cut. Even the ability to secure students has become very, very difficult. So we will look at what sort of mechanisms that we can put in place to report that to our member municipalities.
Okay, so I just want to make sure council understands what you just said.
Okay.
So right now, there is no exceptions
On the
on building
permits.
permits.
Correct.
So from what you might have heard to what is actually happening, so the exception is based on
The legislative.
meeting certain legislative requirements.
That's
So what you're reporting to the board on is anything that goes beyond that legislative requirement. You're to letting the board know that, as an example, somebody came in for a permit application. In some cases, you've contacted them, they haven't gotten back to you, and it's gone over that time limit, that will become an exception.
Right.
If anybody's complaining, saying, well, I submitted it 3 months ago, based on the timelines that they just provided us, it's not on here on your presentation, if those aren't met, that becomes an exception. So if somebody says, well, I've made an application, I haven't had it approved, and it's been beyond 25 business days
Yes, for residential.
for residential, that would automatically become an exception. And so those exceptions are being reported to the board, and so those could be then communicated to us, though, so that we can communicate similar information to our own.
Do we have a copy of that page? Maybe?
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's good information, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we could have a copy of the whole presentation, and I know a couple of the pages we got already, so however you want to do it, Jennifer,
Sure.
that'd be great, thank you.
I'd be happy to share that information.
Can I ask a clarification question?
Sure.
What you
Sure, and
just said?
then Rob.
So this is permits.
Yes.
What about conditional use variance?
Yes, that's what we were talking about, defining applications, see what's involved and what's not. The other comment, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of, is that we've had some comments from people that it's, and that came there, they were told it's going to be 3 to 4 months before they're going to look at their planning applications, so they walked away. So
please.
But, so that we can just address that level of communication that might be.
Sure, absolutely, and from, it depends on the application type, because a subdivision, 3 to 4 months would be generally typical, because you have a circulation window, you have to book a public hearing, so that may have been accurate,
This is
depending.
a variance for a house.
Okay, if you could provide me that information, we can look into it.
Yeah, I also have one that I'm going to forward to you. It was a complaint that I had received.
I think it's the same one.
It's the same one? Okay, yeah. Yeah, it was someone who was wanting to build and they were told that their variation wouldn't be here, come to council for 2 to 3 months, and they have everything lined up for next month. So we'll send that one off to you.
Sure, please.
I think Rob had his hand up, someone
Just
over
the
there.
25-day permit requirement or timeline that planning is gonna give, like, so if someone is waiting for their permit and they haven't heard anything yet, and the 25 days is up, then that's it, then they gotta start over again.
No, they don't have to start over again, then they can file an appeal, then they can file a complaint with the province.
Okay.
So that would be the implication
Okay.
associated with that. They don't have to start over again, that's,
And we can enter into agreement with the person as well to extend those times. So if we agree before the time is up that we want to extend it, so we've had cases where engineers gone on holidays for 3 weeks. We needed something, they were getting other things, and all of a sudden they find they need an engineer, they're gone, that's gonna extend it past. They can come to us, we'll say, yes, we agree, we'll extend it past that time until they get back. So we can agree to extend it if we want, or they can appeal it at that time.
So what I think it's critical so that we understand that'll still come up forward as an exception report, where our PD has said that they've come to an agreement with the builder to extend beyond that, so it's not going to be an appeal. So that exception reporting is critical, I'm assuming, is critical because it'll be by the factor that the province will be judging because it's in legislation now.
Yeah, basically, if we're following the rules of the legislation, there won't be any reports. If it's something's come outside of that, that's when you guys will do.
So does that mean that there's more, sorry, I'm gonna ask the question. So does that mean that there's going to be more applications that are rejected right at the entry?
It may happen already, yes.
Yeah, so everybody understands that then.
Yeah, because if it's not complete, then we have to reject it.
Yeah.
And that's where the 5 days is now, and it will be 2 days next March. So we have 5 days to determine if this is complete. And if not, we reject it. If it is, then it goes into the other portion for the review, and we work on it there.
So are you reporting on that, the ones that are being rejected?
we haven't been, no. So that's something to consider for sure.
I would ask you to consider,
Yeah.
because those are the ones that are gonna call us,
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know.
or council members,
Yeah,
not even me.
yeah, but usually, a lot of times when council members get those sorts of emails or calls or whatever, we usually do forward them to administration to, you know, kind of, so that they're aware, because if Joe Ratepayer phones me and then phones Councilor Spicer and phones Deepak, at least we're all on the same page if we all have the same information.
And I think it helps to also identify what's the shortfalls, why we're getting multiple applications that are short of information, so it requires maybe better level of communication or other things that need to be done as part of it.
Makes sense.
Okay, anything else?
So you mentioned like in 6 months there will be a review of all this to make sure that all these improvements are being looked at and if there's any improvements.
Right, that's the intent, and I'd be happy to come back and report those to our council, if council will have me back.
Definitely, yeah, I
Yep.
think council would be very interested in the findings and how things have gone for the first 6 months, and if there's other improvements that need to be made, what will be worked on in the future, so. Okay, well, if there's nothing else from council, I would, do you have something that you, no, you're good? Thank you very much for coming in, and we'll see you tomorrow.
You bet.
Let's go on camera, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ryan, do you have another?
Another one? Yes, actually, one more.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan, thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
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 question, sorry. I got distracted. My furnace guy's
Oh.
coming tomorrow morning, and he's been,
Hounding you.
yeah.
Take care.
See ya.
See you.
Thank you,
Jen.
bye-bye, have a good day.
See you, Ryan. Ours has been every morning with the last week.
What's that?
Furnace running.
Yeah,
Mine's off.
Mine's been off, I had to turn it off. Mine's dead.
I'd be frozen.
Pull out another blanket.
And I got my window open. Like, everyone's different,
So, resolved, council recess the regular meeting and go into in-camera to discuss legal and personnel issues. Further be it resolved that all matters discussed are to remain confidential as per section 83(1)D of the Municipal Act.
Moved by Councillor Bazarowicz, second by Councillor Horbis. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, and that is carried.